This is a film about a cruise fly visit to the world-famous Milford Sound in New Zealand. Milford Sound can be reached by land, air, and sea. By road, Milford Sound is 291 kilometers or 181 miles from Queenstown, making for a 4 or 5 hour one-way drive. For us, air was the only option to get to Milford Sound as the cyclone had caused a washout which had closed the road to Milford, and in fact our flight too was postponed for several days until the weather improved. Our flight to Milford started from the small Queenstown International Airport, and I was very lucky to get the co-pilot seat in the Cessna Caravan airplane. The Queenstown Airport's main runway ends with a steep drop-off down into the Shotover River Valley, so getting airborne is strongly recommended. We flew over the impressive series of range road switchbacks that we'd later drive over on our way to Wanaka. The rugged Harris Mountains were very scenic in the long rays from the early morning sun. Milford Sound is part of a World Heritage Site in the southwest corner of the South Island of New Zealand. The famous writer Rudyard Kipling called it the eighth wonder of the world. Milford has been judged as one of the world's top travel destinations and is acclaimed as New Zealand's most famous tourist destination, with up to 1 million visitors per year. We flew over scenic Paradise Valley, which was used as the location of Isengard in the Lord of the Rings series of films. However, the fortress of Saruman was not to be seen. It was very exciting to fly amidst the mountain peaks, especially when we encountered the mountains clad in ice and snow. At a height of some 2,700 meters or about 9,000 feet, Mount Tutuko is the highest peak in the Fiordland National Park. It is named after Tutuko, a Maori chief who lived nearby. Arriving at the coast on the Tasman Sea, we swung around and lined up to fly along the length of the Milford Sound towards the small airstrip at its eastern end. The entrance to Milford Sound is narrow, so one wonders how massive ships, amongst the largest in the world, can possibly pass through it, yet they do. The Sound's depth is not a problem, as it descends to as deep as 291 meters or 955 feet. After the Maori, a sealing captain named John Grano discovered the fjord in 1812 and named it after his hometown of Milford in Wales. Pio Pio is a Maori name for an extinct native thrush, and the Maori name for Milford Sound is Pio Pio Tahi, which literally translates to a single Pio Pio, and is based on a legend. Technically, Milford Sound isn't actually a sound, rather it's a fjord. A fjord is an underwater valley carved out by glaciers. Milford Sound was carved out by glaciers during the Ice Age period. Glaciers carved through the land, creating the deep valleys and sharp cliff edges that we see today. These valleys then turned into lakes and rivers as the glaciers melted. But when the sea level rose, it flooded these bodies of water, connecting them to the Tasman Sea. With a mean annual rainfall of 6.4 meters or 252 inches each year, Milford Sound is known as the wettest inhabited place in New Zealand and one of the wettest in the world. Rainfall can reach 250 millimeters or 10 inches during a span of 24 hours. The abundant rain creates dozens of temporary waterfalls as well as a number of major permanent ones that cascade down the cliff faces and reach, in some cases, 1,000 meters in length. Mitre Peak, which dominates the view of the sound from its eastern end, was named by Captain Stokes of HMS Acheron, who thought its shape reminiscent of the mitre headgear of bishops. Large boats have been taking tourists to explore Milford Sound since the 19th century. Today, there is an impressively large industry serving tourists, making day trips to visit Milford Sound. This industry includes buses, planes, helicopters, and of course small passenger vessels which ply the Sound. After landing, we went on a typical Milford Sound cruise that sails up the south side of the Sound, out to the entrance of the Sound on the Tasman Sea, and then returns back along the north shore.
The vessel that you'll need to take care of. The anchor's winch and chain, which is out the front, the bow of the vessel, and through the doorways there are large steps or sea sills. They are designed to keep water out of the cabins, but they're very good at tripping.
We stopped to see the colorful exposed copper-bearing rock at Copper Point, and then stopped almost underneath Fairy Falls. The famous explorer Captain Cook arrived in the area in 1770, but passed by the narrow entrance of Milford Sound, as he was uncertain whether it was navigable under sail. However, once past the entrance, the fjord opens up to a maximum length of 15 kilometers or 9.4 miles, and a maximum width of 1.9 kilometers or 1.2 miles, and a maximum depth of 191 meters or 955 feet. In fact, today, Milford is visited by some of the largest cruise ships in the world. Our boat hooked its bow right at the base of the roaring Stirling Falls for our viewing pleasure.
Take photos of it, but we are going to get close. And when that happens,
the Bowen Falls is just one of two permanent waterfalls that discharge into the fjord, and at 162 meters or 531 feet, it is the tallest. The waterfalls were named to commemorate a visit to Milford by Lady Bowen aboard HMS Clio in 1871. After a couple of hours, we were back at the wharf, and in no time we were back aboard the airplane for our return flight to Queenstown. The number of helicopters and planes coming and going to the Milford Sound Airport is impressive, so the very little airport is very busy. The return flight to Queenstown was via a more southerly route over the mountains, and passed by a series of interesting scenes as we again were frequently flying amongst or just o'ertop the mountain peaks. The Milford Airport was so busy at peak times that airplanes took off one right after the other, so we took off right behind another plane. After takeoff, we rapidly gained altitude and then flew down the fjord, and so got one final look at it. Exiting Milford Sound over the Tasman Sea, we turned back east to make our way across the mountains towards Queenstown. We flew past Sutherland Falls, which at 580 meters or 1,904 feet high are the 7th highest falls in the world. The falls originate from Quill Lake that is nestled in a mountain bowl. The falls are a major tourist attraction in the Fiordland National Park. We exited the mountains over the vast Lake Wakatipu, which is 75 kilometers or 47 miles long. In the distance, we could see the plane that we were following back to Queenstown.
The Mount Nicholas Farm is one of New Zealand's most historic, family-run, fully operational high country stations. With over 100,000 acres on the shores of Lake Wakatipu, tourists can visit the farm to see it in operation.
Finally, Queenstown on the shores of Lake Wakatipu came into view, and we were only minutes away from touchdown at its airport. With the return flight to Queenstown over, it was time to drive on and further explore beautiful New Zealand.